So one aspect of loving the confession is to recognize the piety that's constantly present in the confession. Calling a believer to a fervent love of God. I mean, I can think about it with respect to preaching. How is the preacher to preach? One of the statements in the larger catechism, this is 159, is talking about we're to preach zealously with a fervent love to God. I'm being encouraged not to simply a cold confessional expression, but to a warm-hearted piety of love unto the Lord and union and communion with Jesus Christ. And then there's the element, one of the famous critiques of the confession, so-called, is, well, it doesn't have a chapter on the Holy Spirit. And when you hear that, you wonder, have you read the confession? The Holy Spirit is everywhere in the confession. With respect to preaching, as we think about the work of the Spirit, how is the preacher to preach? How is that word to be made effectual? Only the Spirit of God can make the reading, but especially the preaching of the word, an effectual means of salvation, as it convinces, the Spirit convinces and converts. And what helpful language that is. So the confession is reinforcing my reliance upon the Lord, because apart from the work of the Spirit, I can't read unto my profit. I can't preach in a way that edifies. I can't speak in a way that is piercing to the soul to bring conviction and conversion. I can't build up in holiness and comfort. The confession is so helpful. And then I think maybe one of the pushbacks, because of the spirit of our age, we're individualists. And we want to come to the ideas that we hold individualistically. And maybe we have a sense of a community of faith, but it's a modern sense of a community of faith, rather than looking at how have these things been understood throughout the history of the church. The confession as a whole is so helpful because it's summarizing not just the hot button topics in the middle of the 1600s, but it's summarizing what the church had believed and the battles the church had gone through to think those things through. I don't come to an issue like the doctrine of justification and think, well, my thoughts are clearly the best thoughts about this right now in my age. No, I think I should think in light of when this controversy was raging with particular power and clarity was brought to the issue, or the doctrine of worship and the regulative principle of worship. Regulation in worship helps me know how to do what pleases the Lord. And that's the goal. The confession is not written, particularly as we focus on that chapter on worship, that we could be kind of whack-a-mole with no wrong, 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 wrong. It's giving me room to flourish with what we might call regulated freedom. I'm free within the confines, the boundary the Lord has given. These are the fences or the fence posts he's put in place. And I can have freedom to run within these realms. And as we look back to the raging controversies of the day, 17th century, we can see how helpful it is to come with our thoughts about it, knowing that they're not as well informed as some of these things were in that particular time. So I find the confession to be exceedingly helpful in participating in the communion of the saints, in being led to a deep love of the Lord, and knowing my dependence upon the Spirit, and seeing the beauty and majesty of Jesus Christ. These are wonderful things about the confession and should fuel a warm-hearted piety and a true expression of devotion to the triune God.